second episode, Building in Public. And today we have a special guest with us. We have Guillaume Kendall with us, who is from the Growth Team Lead and the EMEA region. Welcome. Can you hear us?
I can hear you,
Let me
Dan.
know
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
Amazing. Nice to have you here. So yeah, I would like to kick things off. As always, we do a short introduction of ourselves, and then we'll head over to a couple of questions that we prepared, and we would love to hear more about things from Paxos, of course.
Great.
So about myself, as always, CTO of Ayni Gold. I've been with the company since the beginning, and we are building everything around it on the product side. So yeah, we're really excited on the new launches that we have in front of us in terms of the product, in terms of everything that is aligned on the technical side. So, and one of the biggest and most important things, of course, is that we work as a reward system that is paying out in Paxos Gold, and that's also the reason why we will love to hear more about this. And with me is, as I said already, Guillaume Kendall. So please let us know a little bit more about yourself and also what you do at Paxos.
Sure. So first of all, thanks so much for having me, guys. So yeah, my name's Guillaume. A lot of people tend to call me G to simplify the process. Joined Paxos a couple of years ago now, initially to look after PAXG from a growth perspective. So you might be familiar with Paxos as a asset issuer. We issue PayPal stablecoin PYUSD. We issue Binance's stablecoin BUSD. We now issue the global dollar USDG and PAXG, which is our gold-backed token, which has been around for a little while now. I think in total we have about $8.5 billion of assets in circulation, and only Pax Gold is definitely having its moments. So today my role slightly evolved. I look after lead the commercial BD team. Whilst I'm based in Cambridge in the UK, I have an EMEA focus, and that's everything that we do across crypto infrastructure, buy-side hold crypto from our crypto brokerage business. We obviously provide custody services. We provide asset issuance and orchestration from fiat into stables and back out. So great to be here.
Amazing overview. Thank you so much. And I found that really fascinating because I've been watching the journey of Paxos already since my earliest beginning in the blockchain space. So I've been in the crypto space since 2016. And I think Paxos was what year did you guys start actually?
We actually started in 2012.
As 2012.
Yes.
Wow.
Originally as an exchange called ItBit, which still forms really the power behind our crypto brokerage platform.
Yeah, so actually a real OG
in a real OG
space, so to say. Yeah,
for original many waves. Had some peaks and troughs, but definitely all things looking great for us as we look towards the adoption of not just tokenized gold for this discussion, but certainly on the stablecoin front. It seems like almost another day goes by that another major institution's reaching out to us to speak to us about stablecoin adoption and or tokenized gold. So we're in the right spot.
Yeah, definitely you are. Gold has definitely its moments, and therefore also you guys. So if you had to pick 3 features that give tokenized gold a structural edge over the ETFs and the physical gold, so that the audience also understands kind of what the difference is between the different structures, what would you say to that?
Sure. So look, I think the first and maybe not so obvious, but it should be, is that tokenized gold is like all crypto markets is 24/7, right? And so when you're looking at physical gold market, like bullion market, the LBMA market here in London, you're obviously limited to the trading hours of those markets. And whilst PAXG trades very closely to the spot price of gold during those market open hours, we are available to trade, obviously out of hours. And so, as we've seen sometimes, global events happen. Often on the weekends, it seems that people react, and we do see reactionary behavior into PAXG at times when gold markets are closed. So I think that's really the first really important thing. The second thing is, in terms of ETFs, is that you're not actually holding underlying gold, right? You're not, you can't ask an ETF provider to send you your gold. Whereas with PAXG, tokenized gold, if you hold 400 tokens of PAXG, that's a 400-ounce bar of LBMA good delivery. And so if you so wanted to, we would give you your gold bar. We run a process every night where we try to allocate every PAXG physically backed in a bar to the same in the same wallet to the same physical gold bar. So your PAXG holdings shouldn't be spread across 10 different bars. If you're holding less than a bar, we try and put all the PAXG into the same. So you actually got a bearer right to the physical underlying gold. We have had physical redemptions, but that's, I think, a really important distinction here, that it's not a derivative of gold. You're holding gold. And maybe the third, I guess, is that there's opportunities for, I guess, getting out of your assets on a 24-hour basis as well, right? I think, over 120 markets now that trade PAXG. There's plenty of opportunity for the holder of PAXG to be able to move out and get dollars or local currency for their gold exposure. And again, not always the case with ETFs or traditional gold markets. I probably should mention, like, traditional gold markets settle T+2. So instantaneous settlement is also a pretty nice thing here. But yeah, those are probably like three of the first things that I would allude to. And when talking to people, especially non-crypto native people, about why they'd want to hold tokenized gold as opposed to an ETF or otherwise. Of course, if you can afford a whole gold bar and you're comfortable with holding it and being able to move in and out during market hours, then it's equivalent. PAXG, probably worth also mentioning, is I think you can get it down to 18 decimal places of a bar. So probably most ETFs wouldn't allocate you a portion of the fund for, I don't know what, 18 decimal places of $5,000, but it's pretty small. And so, it really enables the democratized access to LBMA good delivery gold, which is really the key investment standard for global gold markets.
Definitely, 100% agree with you on that one. And I think, like, it is often a bit not so looked at that, we are in the Western world, and we also overlook the thing that maybe not everybody has also access to this kind of vehicles, like an ETF, etc. Or even the physical, for that matter. And because also the physical, don't forget, can have its own premium if you want to acquire it. So I think the ease of use and the international cross-border settlement that you offer through that product actually is pretty unique. So this is also why I personally like it a lot. But you touched also at one point, which I found super interesting at the beginning. You said that even when you have, for example, the 24/7 availability, right? So this, I think, is something quite unique and new for these markets, because let's be honest, Wall Street is not used to working 24/7. So I think there are some discussions around the world to change this kind of trading windows now that crypto is in the emerging. And we saw earlier that this month, with the geopolitical tensions and stuff, you had basically a price signal on Paxos Gold, where the traditional markets were closed. Do you see maybe also some kind of, at some point, the reverse happening? So basically that the prices will be more derived from something that is always trading. So the traditional market would get that price signal and price it in, or do you think it will just keep staying as it is?
But I can't comment on, like, price speculation. What I can talk to is the fact that if you're thinking about the global market cap of gold is like $30 trillion, I think. And so ourselves and the other sort of top tokenized gold issuer, I think we have a combined total like 6 billion. I think there's a long way to go before the gold market takes pricing signals from tokenized gold as an indicator of where the market would open Monday morning. But yeah, why not? I think maybe the way to describe it slightly differently is a point where actually, all financial markets become 24/7 and tokenized. Certainly, as you mentioned, like people are definitely looking for equities, for all sorts of other ways. The question becomes the fungibility, I guess, between natively tokenized assets and tokenized representations of a financial instrument. And so, they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to, whilst we're really excited about the growth of PAXG and tokenized gold, so far as like the crypto world is concerned. I think we're like a top 30 token now, maybe top 40. That's fantastic, but it's a tiny percentage of the gold market.
Yes, that's true. I think the way is still there, and I'm sure that you will capitalize on that for the future, 100%. So basically, how would you say then Paxos Gold is the proof of backing model that you're working on, and how do you separate it from the ETF and the physical gold? How would you describe that?
Sure. So the first thing, I guess, to come back to the point that all PAXG is one-to-one backed with an allocated gold bar, right? So we are able to then issue, I guess, on-chain bearer tokens, for want of a better expression. If you hold enough tokens, you are the holder of an entire gold bar. The way that's different from ETFs is the ETFs, you're not holding the bars at all. You're holding a share of a fund. So whilst each PAXG token equals, as I said, one fine troy ounce of good delivery gold, which is held in vaults in the UK, and crucially, they're issued by the Paxos Trust Company, right? So this is an OCC federally regulated entity of Paxos, and so all PAXG is held, all customer assets with Paxos are held in bankruptcy remote structures. And if you were to look on the PAXG website, you would see all of the attestation reports and the transparency reports from our independent auditors that go into the vaults themselves, look at all the serial numbers of the bars that are in the vault, and make sure that they align with what we're allocating from an on-chain perspective. So it's really quite a physical process. Like we buy the gold from the London gold market at the bar allocated. It's then deposited into the vault that goes through an assaying process. We make sure that it is what it says it is. It has to be from an LBMA accredited refiner, which is a limited list of refiners that meet the quality standards of the LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association. And then once we take custody of it physically, we're able to, I guess, tokenize it and issue then new tokens. So from the primary issuance perspective, we keep afloat for daily liquidity needs from liquidity partners who have direct access to Paxos as the issuer. And so they can only create new PAXG when obviously we have liquidity available. We are also tied to the London gold market when we create new PAXG. But that's when you see a lot of benefits from the increasing liquidity on secondary markets. So I think we've crossed over $1 billion in daily trading volumes now with PAXG on a number of occasions. And so most people obviously transact on those markets rather than directly with us.
Interesting. And how would you say that? Because for me now, being in the crypto space, obviously I feel very comfortable with everything that you just said. That because obviously in the crypto space you want the speed, let's say, of execution and everything, and the flexibility, but you also want to be able to trust everything. So the way you just described it obviously is highly regulated. So this is very important. And for me personally, what interests me then also on that front is it when you have this on-chain transparency, does it actually make a difference for institutional buyers, or is it more for the retail to be able to trust the product more? Which would you say?
I think that's a very interesting question, and I often wonder myself, like, how much of retail adoption of PAXG is as a result of the trust and transparency that we provide as the issuer around the processes I just mentioned, versus the fact that the price has gone up 75% this year and the rest of the crypto market hasn't. I think there's probably a good number of people who want to hold PAXG because the number goes up. Not necessarily because they know they have a share of a LBMA good delivery bar held in a vault in London that is issued by an federally regulated entity. I don't have metrics to say whether or not that's the case, but it's a gut feel. Second, in terms of institutions, for sure, right? When people are looking at, especially institutions like a more traditional side, and there's not really much more traditional than gold, looking to dip their toe into digital assets, it definitely makes sense for them to look at gold as the first tokenized asset that they start to explore. Web3. And we're really the only federally regulated gold product in the market. And as such, like, I think we definitely won institutional clients as a result of that. But, Paxos really is a B2B play. And so when those institutions are looking at what they're looking to do with Pax Gold versus their ETF exposure or indeed physical gold exposure, it's got to be clear that, there's a number of other challenges that face them around, wallet management and key management and everything else. It's part of a much bigger journey for them, I think, than it is just to look at the fact that the asset is in fact what it says it is. But clearly that's an important part.
Yeah, makes total sense. So, yeah, I think that in general, in future, probably institutional demand will probably also increase on that front. Especially, I think when it comes down to the 24/7 tradability. So I think this is a pretty key, interesting point for these types of companies, because if you have a pristine asset such as gold, I could imagine that as having that on my balance sheet and unable to trade it liquid instantly makes a big difference. So I just think that not it's not yet that known, to be honest, except in the crypto circle. So in the Web2 space, would be interesting to see how this will evolve, to be honest.
100%. One thing I do find it fascinating, right? I've spent quite a bit of time visiting Istanbul and going to, the Grand Bazaars and looking at the people trading gold there. There is definitely something to be said for holding physical gold, right? And whilst we have definitely a decent presence in Turkey in terms of PAXG market share, um, people still want to hold the thing under their pillows, right? Or for maybe like more traditional wedding gifts, it's quite a different experience to say to somebody, send me your Ethereum wallet address, I'm paying you this in PAXG, as opposed to here's a lovely presentation box with some gold inside, and wishing you all the best for your lives together. It's a different thing, and I know that several governments are definitely looking at ways that they can try and um, bring physical assets that are stored in the home, like gold, onto something that's maybe more transparent, like the blockchain. But I think there's some way to go before we really become emotionally the same desire to hold PAXG than you do to hold a physical gold piece. Even if the fact that you have to then store the thing, insure the thing, it takes, a much more involved process to sell the asset. You have to worry about someone finding it and taking it. All of that is obviously abstracted with PAXG. You have a piece of the highest quality of gold, from an investment grade perspective, stored in a hyper secure facility in the UK. And we take care of all of that. And so maybe one thing I should have mentioned in terms of the key attributes you mentioned for the first question is actually like getting into Pax Gold from a primary issuance perspective. Is this is probably the cheapest way to get into institutional grade gold is to buy from us, because we don't charge custody fees ongoing. We don't charge a premium to buy the asset. We do charge a small redemption fee. But yeah, it's a really efficient way to get into LBMA Gold is through the acquisition of PAXG.
Amazing. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And that's also the reason why we at Ayni Gold are using basically PAXG as our reward layer, because at the end of the day, yeah, we are a mining company, and so with the real mining output, you want to be able to transmit these proceeds also to everybody who's partaking in the system. So, what other real world use cases would you see that you see coming for tokenized gold in the DeFi space and even beyond that?
Yeah, so look, I think what we're seeing clearly is a growth in the amount of markets on chain that are accepting PAXG as collateral. And I think when that happens, a whole bunch of knock-on effects um, can take place and occur. One thing that we're seeing a lot of interest for in the market is generating yield on gold, which is a really challenging thing to do whilst retaining the gold exposure. And so I think as we're seeing markets evolve, that's going to become more and more of a starting point. I think for PAXG's growth is going to be the more collateral demand there is for it, the more people want to hold gold whilst doing other things with the asset they've borrowed. It's going to make stickier, more useful market cap growth for the asset. In terms of real world use cases, I think what you'll see is a growth of institutional adoption, as we've mentioned, and indeed retail adoption, as people start to not just about gold, but in general, move more and more of their financial lives on chain, right? When we're talking about earlier democratizing access to investments, this is the whole thing about tokenized equities, but gold is the oldest form of store of value going. And I know certainly Mr. Schiff has some ideas about the return of gold as a value exchange on chain. I think just to that point, a lot of use cases have come out. We've seen a few sort of gold-backed cards be launched. It doesn't really make sense to me. And it's the same with sort of crypto-backed cards. If you're holding crypto, you're hoping, I think, for in most cases, that the price is going to grow. Same with gold. And so the idea of spending my gold at the supermarket doesn't really stack up for me in that sense. Why would I want to spend that as opposed to my inflation
Depreciating fiat.
Exactly. So I don't think that is a path forward necessarily for gold. Of course, if the world completely collapses, we might have bigger problems than trying to use our crypto to purchase things in the shops. But certainly, like I think we're some way off from it being used as a source of value exchange. I think it's going to remain an investment asset, and I think it's going to grow in terms of its appeal to people who aren't on chain today, but definitely will go on chain and would want to store some of their salaries wherever they are into gold.
Yes, I think you touched upon a pretty interesting point there. And at the beginning, also when you said that you see the use case for gold in general, and especially for PAXG, more as a pristine collateral. So in traditional markets, we've seen that obviously with banks and big institutions being able to take loans, etc., and use different financial instruments and use the collateral in gold. In the crypto space, to be honest, this was something that when I started to look into it more, because I was myself interested in that, especially after the last cycle where you could all kinds of different yield strategies and looping, etc. The question was for me, okay, you can make Bitcoin as like, or WBTC in this case, most of the cases, as a collateral, but hardly ever could I find anywhere that you could make it with gold. Are there any protocols already out there where you say like, okay, they already do that, they provide this, and or is this something more you think in the making?
There are some out there that accept PAXG as collateral today. and I'm not sure necessarily I want to name any specific ones, but there's a number. The key thing to remember here is the market cap and the liquidity of tokenized gold in the last 12 months, right? And so if you're looking at how, certainly in comparison to Bitcoin, we're some way off. But because of the extraordinary price activity that we've seen on gold this year, I think we're up like 75% year to date. With that has grown the amount of tokenized gold in circulation. We've just broken, I think, 500,000 ounces, but PAXG in circulation. The number seems to be continually trending upwards, and with it, the amount of protocols that are reaching out to us to say, okay, well, actually, this is a really interesting asset, and we'd love to think about how we could offer this to our users. How can we provide as a starting point with collateral, and then finding the demand on the other side, people who'd rather hold PAXG as collateral, tokenized gold as collateral versus Bitcoin potentially. And I think certainly in the current market dynamics, the latter seems of interest. So definitely in the making, although there are some out there today, but I would just contextualize that gold is having its moment. And in that regard, when I joined, I think we're at like just under $2,000 an ounce. We're now over $5,000 an ounce. Well, maybe we're just under it today. And I think our market cap was $320 million, and now we're at 2.5 billion. There's been a lot of change, and so to that end, the amount of inbound interest and is certainly growing, and I think you'll see a number of announcements in the coming weeks and months of this becoming going from being in the making to being in the current state.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked this basically was because obviously self-interested also on the one side as a user, but also for our the users that are using our app and stuff, we obviously are also always interested in these kinds of possibilities that open up with new technologies. And we're revolutionizing kind of the mining industry, where we're bringing this on-chain. So obviously then when you earn in something in PAXG and you hold that asset, you obviously don't want to spend it. And this is a common problem that any investment you have, you first, of course, want to, if you have to spend something, that you spend something that is of less value, in this case, the fiat currency. So that's why I think this model will be definitely interesting going forward. And I'm sure that also on our end, we will be building the one or other service around it. So I think this is super, it gives a lot of possibility out there, definitely.
Absolutely. For us, the exciting thing is that yourselves and many other friends of PAXG are thinking along the same lines. And, for us as the issuer, we're absolutely thrilled to hear everyone starting to rally around the asset and think about ways that they could make it ultimately more useful and more efficient for their customers to hold PAXG and do more with it. So I think we're going to see a lot of really exciting innovations in the space in the next sort of 6 to 12 months.
Amazing. And you touched upon it already now that basically PAXG has already been around so long, and the market cap now has grown so much. What do you think now is driving the acceleration so much now? Is it just the price? Is it that, or is something different from the other cycles?
I think the price definitely helps. It's certainly compared to the rest of the markets. It's a good thing to have held. I think the additional thing is that with increased price activity, increases in itself the accessibility of the asset, right? I think we've probably gone from maybe 30 or 40 marketplaces supporting PAXG to, last time I checked, it was over 120. You've got new geographies coming online and making it available to their local users. You've just got, as I said, more innovations around how you can actually use the asset and drive yield or other benefits from the token itself beyond the price movement. So I think as we sort of maybe see a decoupling of the value of holding PAXG and using PAXG as part of your portfolio beyond the price appreciation, I think you'll see maybe a less linear adoption linked to price. But certainly, I was thinking it's naive to say that the price hasn't had a significant impact on platforms wanting to make it available to their users.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense. Yeah, amazing. So, really a lot of packed of information in this episode. I have to say, I learned quite a lot, to be honest, and a couple of things which even myself as a PAXG user didn't know before. So, thank you for that.
Sure.
As we're coming now, basically to the end of our section, I would just like to really thank you for joining us. And yeah, basically as a summary, we have the structural edge of tokenized gold over the ETFs and the physical, which was pretty good. Now the trust model that PAXG was built on has been giving us a really good understanding. And also the regulatory milestones that you guys have achieved are tremendous. So I think this really speaks for yourself moving forward. And yeah, this is exactly also the reason why Ayni Gold has chosen you guys as the model that we trust in order for our user base to be able to feel secure when they get the rewards. So because you guys are the most trusted, regulated, and we can verify everything on chain, and that's really important. So yeah, basically, if our listeners have any questions, please write them in comments. You can also check out our socials on our website and in the app. So we have the links in the descriptions. So make sure to do that. As always, do subscribe to the channels so that you don't miss anything, and especially the YouTube channel, because we have episode 3 of the monthly coming up for this month. So yeah, stay tuned for that. G, thank you so much for your time, and it was a pleasure meeting you here and having you live. Hope to speak again soon.
Daniel, thanks so much for having me. Thanks everyone for listening. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on PAXG. Do my best to respond. And yeah, if you're holding some, put your Ethereum address in the lookup and see the serial number of the bar that your PAXG is in. I think it's a cool feature.
Yes.
And yeah, it's
I didn't know that. Yeah, I will do that. I will do that, definitely. Thank you so much.
no worries. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.